Hello, this is Kenny. This is the final edition of the Clementi Sonatina. This is probably episode 4, so you're probably getting tired of it, but this is the third movement of it, and it's the final movement. But for our history lesson of the day, I will tell you a funny little story, which is quite true, actually. It sounds like it's made up, but it is not. And it all starts with this guy over here. You probably don't recognize him, but his name is the Holy Roman Emperor Franz Joseph II. He was very, very famous, very powerful. At that time, the Holy Roman Empire centered in Vienna, which was also basically the musical capital of the time, too. He was running it at all times. He's also famous. His sister was Marie Antoinette. His whole family's famous, the Habsburgs. But that's beside the point. But he was very powerful, and he and a bunch of buddies got it into his head that they were going to stage a duet. Yes, a duel between Clementi and Mozart. Yes, this guy, of course, we do know, Mr. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and our hero of the Sonatina today, Mr. Clementi. Well, these two, okay, people are betting on this darn duel, okay? So they decide, okay, we'll let me do it because there's money involved here, and any composer of the day, there's money involved. They would not want a piece of it too, of course. All right, so this is in 1781. Mozart was 24, Clementi was 29, so they're at the prime of their abilities. So they're in this duel here. I keep saying duet, but it's not, it's a duel. All right, and they each play a bunch of pieces, all right? One of the pieces Mozart played is called Ah, je vous dirai je m'aime. All right, now that's a French word, but what it was really, and you can still find it today, you can still play it today, is a set of variations on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Yes, Mozart didn't write Twinkle, Twinkle, but he did do a set of variations, and he played it in this duel. Well, what turns out happening is Mr. Franz Joseph II, he's a very warm-hearted guy. He pronounces the duel a draw. However, both Mozart and Clementi sort of agreed, okay, Mozart kind of wins this darn thing, all right? But, you know, they were friends, all right? They had no real hard feelings. Mozart thought, oh, Clementi's a little too technical, and Clementi thought, oh, Mozart's a little too, emotional, and they kind of argued there for argument's sake, but they ended up good friends. They always were, all right? But yes, it turned out, finally, yes, in history, it was a draw. So that's just a little tidbit from history. Now on to the third movement. Before I start teaching the lesson, as always, I'll remind you what it sounds like. Here is the third movement. Alright, this is the third movement of a sonata or sonatina, and as for the form of it, these third movements can be very unpredictable. Sometimes they're in sonata form, but most of the time they're in what's called rondo form, and this is no exception. And a rondo form, as I've probably mentioned in other pieces, it just goes between little sections, A, B, C, A, B, and this one's so simple. It just goes A, B, A, B. And it's done. That's all there is to it, all right? So the first section here, the first A section, is a very quick little thing here. Now I'm playing it quite slow, all right? This goes, you can see here, it's actually called the bache for a tempo, which is one of the fastest tempo markings you'll ever see, all right? But for teaching purposes, it's no use going way too quick, all right? So anyway, the right hand is quite simple. I put some fingering in. You can fool around with it as always, all right? But it's just a very simple melody. Very, very simple. As you can tell, it was just the same melody repeated twice. You know, you just learn it once, you learn it twice, all right? And that's what we're calling the A section right here. Just that A section. That's the entire A section, all right? All right? And now the left hand is even simpler. All it is, you know, this is in the key of C major, all right? So what we got here is basically broken triads. Very simple. The only little tricky parts, maybe, especially if your hands are smaller, is these little quick. All right, which is just going from C quickly to G back to C. All right, very simple, and that's the whole A section. And it just repeats itself. That's section A. Okay, on to section B. Alright, section A was in C major, and so is section B. And I'm only mentioning that because probably in larger sonatas and stuff, they will change keys. But not in this case. No, this is this is a sonatina. It's quite simple. Alright, so he kept it in C. This thing doesn't change keys at all. Alright, so there, it makes your life easier completely. Alright, so section B starts here. In the right hand is just another similar melody, but not quite the same. It goes like this. Basically, that's it. It gets a little fancier, though, okay? It gets a little bit like a scale. All right? So all you have to do, be very careful of practicing this. Get your fingering right. All right, this little thing here. All right, I'm gonna have to switch it over here because I can't get all the melody in here. But let's just switch this down a bit here. All right, so let's see here. What do we got here? All right, that looks a bit better now. All right, so what you have here is just a bit of a scale here. And I lied. That scale is actually a G major scale. So he does switch it into a little key for a little bit of time, but he goes right back to C. So we can't call it a key change. So just get your fingers right. Whatever's comfortable. Here's the hard part here. All right, coming down here, this third here. Okay. And then it just does this again. And that's it. That's section B on the right hand. Now, section B on the left hand is even sillier. Just look at this. You got a C, and then what happens next? A C, and then what the heck? A whole bunch of C's. So that's what you got at first here. Use whatever fingering you want for that. Okay, you can put your little finger on there and you would do whatever you want with it. And then it gets a tiny bit harder. You got little chords here. Alright, just very simple little chords. Do whatever fingering you need to do. Alright, so it kind of just gets very, very simple. So you got this thing going here. With those C's, right? And then it just does it again. All right. Okay, let me move this back over again here. All right, very simple. All right. Okay, so the left hand continues, and then you just go through all these chords. And that's it. End of section B. All right, very simple, very simple. You're not even grade 3 level with all these silly C's. It's kind of funny, isn't it? All right, on to the final two parts of this thing. We'll do it very quickly because it's almost a complete repetition here. Okay, as I said earlier, this is an A-B-A-B form. So we're going right back to section A, and it's almost a direct repetition. Oops. Sometimes you have to practice these things slowly, all right? Because I even make mistakes a lot too, and it's not too hard, it's just a little technically tricky, all right? Make sure you're doing your scales and stuff. We'll talk about that stuff later. But anyway, and the left hand's the same thing too. Same broken little triads, all right? Almost exactly the A section, completely almost complete repetition. So once you learn it once, you've learned it twice. And then we get to the B section here. Let's just move this a tiny bit so we can get most of it here. Oh well. Okay, I'll start here again. All right, so the B section comes back again here too, all right? So it's the same thing here. If you remember, there are C's here. All right, but it gets a little harder, not much. Your left hand gets a little triggered. And then a whole bunch more of these C's. You know, this piece is in the key of C major, all right? It's quite obvious, all right? So the B section, and you know, it's a little more scale here in the right hand. Alright, this time it's in a C. It didn't quite switch to that G again, alright? It's just kind of, you know, just watch your fingering. Alright, I put fingering on the sheet music I provided with you, but you can change it as always, alright? And we're back to our C's. Alright, now the ending I just want to mention a little bit about, alright? Okay, all right, now here at the ending, the left hand is a bit silly again. We're back to our C's. And then we get a bunch of F's here, all right? 3 F's, and then 3 G's. And then right at the end, we got this thing. Back to our broken triads, all right? And the right hand is doing the same thing, little scales. And the ending is kind of funny. It goes like this. Alright, I just want to mention something about that. All he's done is just put the same C chord over and over again. He's saying, we're in the key of C. Alright, and ends on a C chord. And why I mention that is, like, in particularly guys like Beethoven or something, at the end of a big long piece or something, he'd make sure you knew what key you were in. He'd have endings like this. Going on for 2 minutes, these darn endings, all right? It's very common with a guy like Beethoven or something. Just to say, after all this time you've been listening, I've been in the key of C all alone. So this one just adds. And that's the end of the Clementi Sonatina. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a long lesson because I had to break it up into several parts, it being a little longer than most. But we will be moving on. The next piece I teach you will be a Russian, Mr. Tchaikovsky. Until then, I'll see you later. Thank you.